right. Well, want to welcome you to the Warehouse Floor, the podcast where we talk about warehousing and supply chain technologies for fulfillment for companies that do fulfillment on their own and rely on experts like us to provide equipment. I'm Tim Hoy. I'm the CEO of Hoy Innovations, and got a special guest with us today, Stan Witt, who heads up our automation and conveyor department. Stan, why don't you go ahead and tell us on the podcast who you are and kind of some of your experience.
All right. Thanks, Tim. Yes, I'm the Director of Engineering here at Hoy Engineering. I've been here for about 28 years, and I graduated with an engineering degree specializing in design technology and computing. And I started working at Boeing initially, and then I worked a little bit in automation there with some robotic systems and tooling, and then I went on to work for a Japanese company, a large material handling company, and that's where I really cut my teeth on automation and material handling. Worked there for several years before I came here. It's been an exciting ride, especially with the changes in the market. It's been especially exciting with the emerging market of e-commerce, and be able to witness that and hear the naysayers that said that it will never work, people will never buy off the internet, and to see where we are today, and then be involved with companies as they're trying to react to those changes in the market and get their products to the users in a completely different way that we've ever done before. And it's just been a really exciting place to land in a career.
Yeah, no, I think it's we've seen a lot, and you and I in the business are kind of more toward the senior side of the business. Hoy Innovations is a unique company. We've been around 60 years, and you and I have been involved in it for the last 30, but there are still people here that worked here before we did, and it's kind of interesting to see, I would say the first 20 years in business, not as much innovation and change, but the last 10 or 15 years, it's been on a pretty quick pace. The market's for sure evolving a lot. The last 10 years and 5 years, the change is just becoming more and more rapid, and the opportunities for automation. As we're kind of preparing for today's topic about conveyors and automation, that wanted to think back to our relationship with Hytrol. I sent a quick text to our rep from Hytrol and said, "Hey, how long have we been a partner with Hytrol?" And he texted right back and said, "January 6, 1966.
Nice.
And to talk a little bit about Hytrol, I think when you talk about conveyors, for us, Hytrol has been a marquee partner, and for most of the life of our business, 58 years. I think, any conversation we have about conveyors and automation is going to be centered around, our relationship with Hytrol as a key supplier. So let's talk about how Hytrol, in your mind, is really differentiated and been a key product partner for us for our whole careers.
Yeah, I think we work with a lot of different vendors, but Hytrol just really stands out that they understand what a company like ours brings to the table, and where we're so close to the end user and their needs. And it's been great to be able to work with Hytrol and see, there's been multiple times when we bring ideas or issues to Hytrol that we see out in the marketplace, and how quickly they are to respond with design innovations and solutions. It's really refreshing and great to see that, and to be really valued as an integral partner to them, and the trust that I feel like it's a mutual trust that we share with them. There's never a feeling like we can tell them what customers we're working with, and they've always treated us fairly, and I feel like we do the same.
Yeah, they're really an amazing partner. And I look back, they really headline out innovation for all the suppliers that we work with. They're usually at the front side of embracing technology, back from when I would say bringing out the Heroes program, where they're using AutoCAD programs with layers on top to help draw the conveyor and price it. And that's, they probably had 6 generations of that. They're much more advanced there, but they were really one of the first manufacturers to embrace technology like that to the marketplace. And it was a huge benefit to us to react to quicker drawings, quicker pricing. I thought the use of intranets and the web page and trying to stay connected in the digital world, they're willing to try everything. And some things, some programs kind of go by the wayside and other programs stay, but they're jumping into all of it.
Oh yeah, their investment, both in time and money to invest in tools that really help us do a better job. I haven't seen another company that is that focused on providing tools to make us more efficient at what we do and providing answers to them, and be able to place orders with that integrated tool. We use it to design, price, and then place our orders just with a click of the button. There's nothing else out there like that.
Yeah, I think Hytrol is unique, and it does play into how we work with customers, in that Hytrol is really building components and building blocks of conveyor that are almost cataloged, they're pre-engineered, and that modular nature allows us to design quickly for each application. You and I have been, and our company has been providing solutions for all types of customers, small and emerging, very mature, and everything in between. Let's kind of talk a little bit about that modular capability and how that helps us grow with customers. Because one of the things, as we talk about the modularity, is that we don't want our customers to feel like maybe conveyors are too expensive for them, or, is it too big of a starting point to really jump into, and how really affordable that first phase can be.
Yes, historically, most of our customers, we get to meet our customers usually in the early stages of their business, sometimes within months of them opening their doors, and they're still working out of a garage, and they're looking to expand, and they're not exactly sure where to spend the money that's really tight early on in a business. They want to spend it wisely. They don't want to have to, throw away what they just invested in. And that's really a fun place to be with a customer starting out with when they're young like that, and we can provide them some conveyor solutions that can then grow with them. More often than not, when we're going back with a customer and they're growing, we're repurposing the conveyor that they've already bought, and that conveyor lasts for years and years and years. And it's rare that we go into a customer with an expansion and we're not repurposing significant portions, if not all, of their conveyor systems and simply adding on to it. And our designs usually are looking, not only what your current needs are, but what are your needs going to be in 2 years from now, 5 years? What are your future plans? And then we set benchmarks that both us and our customers know that once we get to a certain level of either order activity or capacity, we know what the next step is, and we've already put together some conceptual layouts for that, so everybody understands what our next step is going to be. And the great thing about Hytrol is their conveyor is such great quality that it just lasts for years and years and years. I mean, there's conveyor out there that's still operating that was put in before I came to work here at Hoy.
I know. Sometimes we do an expansion with one of those customers, and they're like, okay, this is a pretty significant expansion. It's 20, 25 years old. Should we it's probably time to put in new lines, but they're like, but it's still working so great. Like, yes. Yeah, but we're putting this in for another long leg of longevity. Maybe it's time, but it really does, the quality, they're very respected, and facility managers know of their durability and quality. But I think that's a great point to bring up, in that some people may think, well, I don't know what my conveyor system would look like. I probably can't afford it. And we get the benefit of doing that strategic planning with customers that might be moving into a building, and say, we hope to be here 10 years, and this is what the growth looks like. Most companies couldn't afford in year 1 or 2 what their system would look like at year 7 and 8. Nobody can, you know, so we're always looking at, hey, here's a full build out. Here's what the first 2 years might look like. So whether, you know, the conveyor system, the storage racking, the density, maybe levels of a pick module, those are all options that are kind of in the future in play that can be integrated into it. And you're right, you get to reuse so much of that original investment as you grow the system. You know, some systems are tuned for, you know, with no need to change them in 5 years. The market was pretty predictable. We size it for a certain volume, but I look at some of our customers that have been on very aggressive growth curves, and almost every year in February we're saying, okay, what were your peak months for the fourth quarter and Black Friday, and what are your volumes? Okay, let's plan out how to handle next year's anticipated growth. So some customers are really dynamic, but again, it's a very similar engagement where we're working through what their next goal is, using that technology, and then coming up with a solution for the heightened throughputs.
Yeah, so, and especially these companies that enter the market initially as an e-commerce, where they are selling their goods on the internet, their growth curve is just exponential. It's far greater than what we see in regular distribution. It's a lot slower and more predictable. So, you know, I've been in situations before where I walked in and the customer, they've grown so much that, you know, it seems like it's great news, but it also puts them kind of in a panic mode of saying, next year during Christmas time, we're going to have to be able to ship out of our facility 20,000 packages a day. And we've got 3 weeks to do that in. And that's when our business goes from operating into the red and operating to the black. So those 3 weeks are absolutely critical. I have no idea how we're going to ship that many packages a day. And to be able to help them and stay in the same building and put in some technology and pull that off is so satisfying and so much fun to see that happen. That's one of my favorite parts of being in the business, is being able to help people like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's some of the takeaway. We talk and reflect on some of these projects and the satisfaction that comes. But when an operator talks about this year as it planned out and was successful compared to last year, where they were not sleeping well, they didn't enjoy Thanksgiving dinner, to now this new system with enhanced capabilities, are like, everything got out the door. It was managed really well. We didn't have the heartache and the stress. That's when you know you've worked great with a client to solve a problem.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of the hurdles that people might think about. Where do I put it? You know, conveyor sometimes becomes like a wall in a facility that they perceive like, well, now if I put that conveyor pick line down, I can't walk across it. You know, let's talk about some of the solutions, because there really is so many great ways to put conveyor down, whether it's elevated or towered or along a wall. What kind of suggestions would you have to talk about that?
Yes, because those hurdles are valid considerations. You know, you've got high traffic aisles that can't be encumbered with a conveyor that's anchored in the floor right in the middle of that. That would be a downside. So, but there are definitely solutions around that. We put in pick modules that are 2 and 3 levels high. We come off the top level and go overhead with the conveyor over near the dock doors, put the sortation right up against the dock doors, and then convey it backwards. So it really keeps the floor free. Fork trucks, personnel, material can flow freely across the floor, although you've got hundreds of feet of conveyor in the system. And we've done several systems like that. There's other solutions when a conveyor just absolutely has to go through the middle. There's other emerging technology that we're getting into. Probably do another podcast on that with autonomous motorized vehicles that have really come to fruition in the last few years. The technologies have gotten to the point where they're super productive and can eliminate some of those issues. We're getting into that in a big time as well. We also use different technologies, carts and different things like that. So there's all kinds of solutions, and sometimes a solution based on the material that the customer's moving and their throughputs. We simply have a conveyor system that's just a sortation system, and all of the picking is done without conveyor, but then it's moved to pack stations and efficiently sorting out the door. And we've got systems in that are doing, well over 100 cases a minute on systems like that. But there's very little conveyor actually out on the conveyor floor. And we love systems like that too. It comes down to really what's going to suit that customer the best, make it most efficient for the customer. And sometimes it's less conveyor on the floor, and you really focus your investment on conveyor and automation in the sortation area.
Yeah, that seems to be maybe the trend. 10 plus years ago, we did a lot of what might be wholesale distribution, where distribution centers are pulling to large store orders and so forth, and we're picking on conveyors. And with the growth of e-commerce and more direct-to-consumer packaging and shipping to doorstep, it's changing that. So we do a lot of work with pick-to-cart solutions. Those are very productive and can bring a lot of product to a packing station. Now, once those packing stations, it could be 5, 10, 15, they're packing those things up. We got to have an efficient way to get those packages routed successfully to the correct door, which would be the shipping carrier. So that's probably one of our most common systems in the last 5 to 10 years, where we're doing high-speed sortation to carriers. And those are fantastic systems, offering actually a lot of flexibility on the floor and a lot of flexibility for peak times, because the variable is how many people you can have in the system picking to these batch carts. Those carts come to pack stations, and we have lots of customers that are maybe operating for 6 months or 8 months out of the year with 50% of the pack stations. In the last quarter, they have those pack stations in line. They can double the pack stations by adding people and handle their fourth quarter shipping. So I think I'm pretty excited about the technologies that we have that help a lot of business today, where they really are tuned for fourth quarter performance.
Yes.
The other 3 quarters are handling business as usual, but fourth quarter is game on, and they've got a double, triple, quadruple output. And we can do it pretty painlessly and for really a cost-effective investment in material handling.
Yeah, it's really exciting. One of the latest buzzwords that has emerged in the last just couple, 2 or 3 years has been goods to person, and everybody's talking about goods to person. Traditionally, it's being driven by the e-commerce, but that's the new technology, and that's what everybody's looking to find the most efficient ways to get that product to that individual that wants that product. How do we do that in the most efficient way, the most economical way, the most eco-friendly way? All those things come into play, and it's just fun to be involved in the technology that's allowing that to happen. And one of those aspects is the packaging. Packaging has been changing dramatically. And all of a sudden, people are shipping things in bags. And if you've ordered anything on the internet, you realize there's a large variety of packaging. When your product shows up on your door, you don't know if it's going to be in a bag or a box or an envelope or whatever. All those need to be conveyed or handled. And so there's different technologies, different conveyors that have been developed to be able to handle those efficiently. Sometimes you're handling drastically different products on the same conveyor system or on the same automation system, and to be able to have the flexibility to be able to do that is essential for a lot of our customers. And it's not a trivial process. It's not just, I'll just buy this conveyor and it'll work out magically on everything. It doesn't work that way. And that's one of the exciting things that we can go in and say, look, there are solutions out there. There's lots of companies that are working on this. We have our eyes open and we're looking at those and we're exploring those, and be able to provide those kinds of technologies is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I remember some of these projects when bags first started coming. Like, we had just installed a large shoe sorter, and they're like, "When did these bags show up?" They're like, "We were just at a packaging show. We thought it was a great idea, and we started putting bags in." We were, I think, fortunate that the shoe sorter did it well. Like, okay, we got lucky.
Yeah,
Like,
we did get lucky on that one.
you needed to let us know that you're looking, but it's interesting that the manufacturers, yeah, that changed the dynamics of the industry. We have to adapt for it. Our factories adapt for it, and it's a key thing to consider.
Mm-hmm.
It is, thinking of the last 5 to 10 years, the dynamics of it are really exciting. I mean, there's such a change in order profiles and how customers work. We talked a little bit about kind of foreshadowing some of these conversations around other technologies, robotics, automated mobile robots, robotic sorting. It was maybe talk a little bit about a technology that we're using for sorting to high levels of endpoints. It could be end user customer orders, but some of the technologies that we have available to us.
Yes, the one of the biggest technologies right now are these automated carts and fork trucks that are able to selectively go and pick the product, and it has a fleet management system, basically a computer that's monitoring the location and activity and battery level of each one of these autonomous robots that are moving around on the floor, picking up materials and bringing it to the operators. So it's saving those operators time. It gets the materials to them, and they're able to pick it, package it, and they're just continuously bringing them orders. And those types of systems, you can just keep on adding bots to those. We just put in a system that would have been millions and millions of dollars based on the throughput number and the number of sortation locations that they had when they first started talking to us about it, and the throughput numbers. I'm saying the first thing we need to consider is, how do we get that much product on the belt that fast? It's almost impossible without spending just a lot of money on high level of sortation. At the end of the day, we ended up using little bots on a table that move around, and they'll show up at the operator, and they're like little dump trucks, and you put the operator puts the product on there, and it drives around to the dump location. And we have hundreds of dump locations and dozens of pickup locations on that system, and it can handle the throughput, and it's safe, and it's just amazing. That's one of the newer technologies out there and that saved the customer literally millions of dollars, and also footprint in their building went down. I mean, this thing was going to be just gigantic when we were first putting together our initial layouts using more traditional type of conveyor systems. Those are the exciting technologies when you run into something like that, and it just has so many added benefits around it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I remember having conversations with a customer, 4 and 5 years ago about their strategic vision and planning. And we knew this requirement to sorting to stores was going to be, and a lot of stores was going to be coming down the road. We had done a couple projects, a couple phases, but this is like phase 4, and it was many years after move-in. But it's interesting how technology that was really only a couple of years old, that we had been thinking about 5 years ago, really replaced it. It's such a better idea, much less footprint, much less cost. I mean, saving millions, honestly, and they have a system that's really dynamic, safe, fun to work with. They're excited about having their facility, and it was a really fun project to put in.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, if you've ever seen the bot wars where the bots are trying to, it's kind of like that on a big table, except these are nice bots. They cooperate with each other. They don't beat each other up. But it's really fun to watch it, and the operators absolutely love it because they feel safe around it. It's very quiet. It's just so many advantages. I could go on and on and on about that technology, and that's just one of the technologies that we're employing right now.
Yeah, I think that's, and one of the topics that we want to talk about is really the hybrid nature. I would say, in your past experience when you're working with a highly, an automation company, those are companies that were selling to Fortune 100 type companies, Fortune 50, the largest companies in the nation and in the world. They were solving it with complete automation systems, ASRS systems, or automated storage and retrieval, big ticket projects, and did a great job. But they also had their limitations. They had the throughput maxes, and handling every part in the same system has what we feel is disadvantages, because I think we've always liked the idea of having hybrid automation. Like let conventional shelving and picking and rack storage do what it does well for the product movement that it can support well, and automation is used to support certain segments of materials that have different movement requirements or different cube storage requirements. So we like that. We've always liked that, but I think the technologies now, there's so many high automation pieces that can handle and solve unique projects in a building. So some warehouses might have, and we have some 3PLs that are employing lots of different systems, conveyors, vertical lift modules, automation storage, robots. I mean, this is, I think, the future of what distribution is going to look like.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah, 30 years ago, the companies that could get into automation were really the Fortune 100 companies, because they were building, like you're saying, an automated storage retrieval system and really overbuilding it because it had to handle all of their product and all of their throughput. So the investment was really large, and the returns were a little bit marginalized because of that. And so only very large companies could do that. Now we've gotten a lot more sophisticated in being able to analyze throughput down to the individual SKU or the individual product. We're looking at that particular product and how it moves throughout the year and how it's trending, and then be able to assign that to the right technology. Like you say, it might go in an ASRS, or it might just go on a shelf, depending on the nature of the product, the size of the product, how fast it gets picked, how many times we have to replenish it on the shelf per pick we're doing. We look at all those dynamics, and then we can use that to help design a hybrid system and put the right SKUs in the right area of the warehouse, so it requires the least amount of effort to pick it. We can get it out the door the fastest, but at the same time, we can have high storage density for maybe the slower moving products that you need to hold on to, but you need to have a place to store them. But we're able to keep it in a smaller footprint because we've applied really a hybrid system. I love doing hybrid systems. I think that's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. You get the most efficiency is when you're doing hybrid systems.
Yeah, and I think and this is kind of the whole topic of our podcast, the warehouse floor. It's not about technology alone that handles a warehouse management system for SKU count, for reports to general ledgers. It's about managing parts that you have to store, that you have to pick, and you have to fulfill and get out the door as soon as possible. So it's that combination of the dollars spent to get it done and how fast the workers on the floor can do it by supporting them with technologies that empower them and don't hamper them. Sometimes you put technologies in it like, well, we got visibility, but we got slower. That's only a half win. I don't even know if I consider that a half win.
Right.
If they don't get the control they want and get faster, it might have needed further analysis. We definitely want to do both. We think the warehouse worker is, got more on their plate. They're really one of the most adaptable people in the workplace. They continue to have to get work done as the market has been changing for a long time. And it's just fun to be in a time where technology is now catching up to help them. And it's pretty exciting to be bringing technologies at a pretty affordable rate in these certain little cells to really help each worker get their work done quicker.
Yes, and I think as far as just quality of environment for a warehouse worker, a lot of times automation can be a little bit controversial in that field, saying, hey, are you guys just trying to replace bodies out here on our floor? Is that what this is all about? But I prefer to looking at it as when we go in and we're able to add automation that enhances the experience of the workers inside that warehouse, they love it and they enjoy working with that technology because it makes them more efficient and they feel more valued. And the positions are able to offer more money. The more efficient we can make an operator, the more that company can afford to compensate that individual, which they desperately need, because to get warehouse workers, everybody knows the wages have been forced up, particularly since COVID, and be able to put in the technology and give those operators a better work environment, a more professional feeling type of environment, and be able to afford to be able to compensate them better because we've made them more efficient.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And to that topic of the warehouse floor, it is really about it's about everyone in the cycle that they experience a win-win-win. But
yeah,
when you talk about that warehouse worker that now has measured visibility to what the work they're getting done, they're getting commended for improvements. It really builds an environment, and we see those warehouses that are built on delivering good tools, having good expectations, letting people rise above that, getting that validation. Those teams have a really good vibe inside that warehouse, and they're all working together with management, with the warehouse production, and it's really impressive to see. Somewhat unique.
Yes.
I would say that doesn't exist in a lot of places, but it exists in a lot of our customers, and that's definitely a goal that we have going into these automation is, how do we help your team members succeed? And they all become part of that success.
Yeah.
Interpersonally, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, from what I've observed, the customers that do have that kind of an attitude towards their staff are the companies that are growing, because it's kind of a company-wide culture, and it filters throughout the company. And they've been really fun to work with, and they fit well in today's market and what people are looking for, not only in the product but in the culture of the companies that they're choosing to purchase from.
Yeah, and I think there's definitely an untapped ability to really focus on the supply chain, the logistics, and helping that team win and be part of a company's strategic vision and plan. Like, you're not only going to get it done, but you're going to get it done with team members that are building culture, excited to be a part of it. It's a really valuable piece. And we see the benefit to those companies that get it and really support it. It's super exciting. That's probably one of the things that I think our teams are most excited about is, having that end result product be something that people enjoy working in, and it's affecting their business positively from an employee morale.
Yes. One thing we haven't talked about a little bit, we've talked a lot about the distribution and that end of it, which is really exciting as a big part of our business. But another place where we that we support is in production, in factories, particularly the food markets. And we don't get into making the food or necessarily packaging the food, but once it's packaged, it's a material handling project, and we've done an awful lot of palletizing systems. Years ago, when I first started here, we were doing everything with conventional palletizers, and I haven't done a conventional palletizer in 20 years. It's all been robotic palletizing. We've got multiple projects going on right now with robotic palletizing, supporting production lines, and a lot of it's food. And we provide the conveyors. And the nice thing about the robotic palletizing is that it's actually decreased the need for large, long conveyor lines, because one robot can handle palletizing up to three different product lines simultaneously. And we use the robot to handle the pallets, to bring in empty pallets, and then we have conveyor that pulls the full pallets away from it, and it's super efficient. And that's been a real fun industry to support, as well as in these factories, and really automating the last part of their process. Once it gets into the box, that needs to get ready and prepared to be able to ship, whether that's to individual customers. A lot of times that market is still going, more of a traditional route to their distribution centers or their stores, or they're providing multiple brands for multiple different customers. But that's also an area that we're into in a big way.
It's interesting that the layout, the conveyor requirement, actually less footage. It's going to be a more efficient from a cost basis, takes up less square footage. These robotic arms do a much more complex, efficient stacking of pallets. It's also, a huge ergonomic benefit. Palletizing boxes off a line is going to fatigue backs.
Oh yeah.
And when you can save the future health about team members, employees, it absolutely makes sense to investigate deeply. And honestly, the ROI on these types of projects are super impressive. Yeah. It's an exciting part.
Well, and the other thing is, we mentioned a little bit before, is the change in packaging and how dynamic that is. And with robotic palletizing, we've got a lot more flexibility to react to new changes in packaging, which a lot of times the packaging is more focused on the marketing end of it than the practicality of handling it. We're doing a system right now that has a specialized packaging for the big depot stores, that they wanted to have in a special display unit that displays on the pallet itself. And you can't just pick it up by the top. We had to develop a customized, we call it an end effector, but it's just basically a customized end that can grab that product in a gentle way, but in a firm way, so that we can quickly move it and palletize it. That was all custom engineered to be able to handle that kind of thing. That's the kind of things we can do when we're working with robotics. We've got that kind of flexibility.
Yeah, those are neat projects, and those will be projects that we highlight all this technology as we build out our YouTube channels and some of the media that we'll have on social or LinkedIn and YouTube. These are great things to see and help people understand the benefits. So, yeah, look forward to some upcoming media for those storylines. But Dan, it's we talked about some of the foreshadowing of some of the other technologies, the controls work, and really the AMRs. All these things are going to be bringing cost advantages and allow us to deploy a more flexible system, a higher performing system. But we'll do those on some other episodes of the Warehouse Floor podcast. So you and I and some of the other team members will jump into those and have some more great conversations. So thanks for jumping in and with the team and talking about the Warehouse Floor today.
Oh, great. Yeah, I love to talk about this. So appreciate the time.
Yeah, thank you, Stan.